Brooklyn Tower is near completion over in New York City. Take a look.
The tallest building in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Tower, getting ready to open.
Ashley Rodriguez takes a look at what super tall skyscraper living will look like.
Just across the East River, the sky above Brooklyn has a fresh scrape cut by the borough's first super tall, the Brooklyn Tower, whose construction is just about complete.
I think this is like more of like a Manhattan thing, 42nd Street or something, but not in this area.
It took the JDS Development Group about 2 years to build a 1,000-foot hexagonal luxury residence, which juts out of Dime Savings Bank on 55 Fleet Street, in an area undergoing a burst of high-end growth.
You can still get the Manhattan luxury skyscraper feel in downtown Brooklyn, which is something that, 10, 15 years ago was never thought of.
And while some say it makes them think of the Tower of Mordor in Lord of the Rings,
I don't think it necessarily matches the aesthetic anywhere else.
Others say it's evolving the Brooklyn skyline.
I think it's really unique. It's definitely something really different.
This super tall offers condos that range from 4-bedroom, 3,000 square foot penthouses costing just under $8 million to 600 square foot studios that cost just shy of $1 million.
Wow. $1 million?
Yeah.
No.
It's supposed to be like $400 a month extra on the amenities, so it's quite expensive.
But the amenities are what makes the tower a luxury, with an indoor basketball court, dog run, playground, library, theater, and pool that wraps around the dome of the Dime Savings Bank.
I think people really want experiences. A lot of people work from home. So I think to live in like a luxury building is more valuable than ever.
Now, they have set aside more than 100 units for affordable housing, but affordable is subjective. You have to make a minimum of $90,000 a year, and the cheapest rental they have is a studio for about $2,700 a month.
So essentially, most people are priced out. A lot of people don't. It's funny to think about these prices. And when I say $1 million ain't $1 million of what it used to be, a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy. But $1 million is not $1 million anymore, right? When it's being priced anywhere from $1 to $8 million, we really, honestly, like, it's nothing that you can do. Either you get into the bags or you ain't. Either you adjusting or you're not. Either you're going to be priced out and gentrified or you're not. Because if you don't think that these apartments, not only are they going to be snapped up quickly, but also people it's going to appreciate over a period of time, then you're crazy. Because it's almost like the rich is going to keep getting richer. And that's why I keep telling y'all that the divide between the poor and the rich is going to get wider and the middle class is going away. More importantly, the amenities look great. The amenities look awesome. However, most people don't even know how affordable housing works or how many units or why they are forced to then set aside so many units for affordable housing. A lot of times that's negotiated with the city in order to get incentives, or the state in order to get incentives to build this multi-million, multi-billion dollar complex in the first place. So essentially what happens is if you are looking for some kind of tax incentive, or you want a tax break, or you want something to be built because the city wants more tax revenue to come into the city, so it's a win-win for both sides, what will happen is you'll have to set aside so many units, or you'll have to do give back into the city, and you got to acquiesce over into, oh man, we want some mixed use development, or we want some affordable housing, or you got to set aside 5%, 10%, 15% of units over to people that want to live there but really can't afford to live there with the rest of the people that they really building it for in order to maximize profit, right? So the place that I'm in is actually one of the first places that's ever been built, or in a long time, that's been built with no affordable units. So one of the reasons why this place was attractive to me is that we got no incentives, or the person that built this place got zero incentives to build this place from the city. They could have, but they decided not to, because one of the attractions for the unit itself is that there is no affordable housing. Now, is Anton against affordable housing? Not necessarily. I just think that you go where you can afford and not necessarily have to merge people in order to have some kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion program for what it is that we're doing. But one of the reasons is that it kind of keeps away a certain element, which attracts me to it, because if you can't afford to live there, then you're just going to be priced out. So if you want to live in a certain place, it's plenty of places in this huge city that you can go to, or a lot of these places, you want to move out to the suburbs or whatever, where you can buy housing, but you don't have to be where other people are that decide that they want to spend their money and they want to afford a certain lifestyle. Then we got to accommodate you in order to make sure that we fit some kind of narrative or whatever. So that's what's happening over in Brooklyn. In addition to that, there's a former New York Jets football player that is being denied bond, and let me tell you why.
No bail for a Spalding County football coach who police say confessed to strangling a woman in Maryland. That's the ruling from a judge in Prince George's County. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for Fox 5 News at 10. I'm Tom Haynes in for Russ Spencer.
I'm Courtney Bryant. Carl Kearney is accused of killing Patrina Best at a home in the Washington, D.C. suburb. Fox 5's Christopher King spoke with the prosecutor handling the case, and he joins us now at the live desk with more. Christopher?
Courtney, Tom, Carl Kearney sits in a Maryland jail. He has a lot of time on his hands to think about the crime he's accused of. And tonight, the prosecutor is asking one question: why?
It was a very brutal crime.
Carl Kearney is accused of choking Patrina Best to death.
So this was an intentional act. It was a very brutal act, and no one deserves it.
A Maryland judge Tuesday afternoon refused bail for Kearney. Aisha Braveboy is the state's attorney for Prince George's County in Maryland. She calls it the right decision.
Anyone who is willing to kill someone with, by strangulation is someone who is dangerous, someone who has a violent temper, and who cannot be trusted to be around law-abiding citizens.
Prosecutors say on Saturday, Kearney strangled Best inside a home in Prince George's County, a suburb of Washington, D.C.
There was an argument, some type of dispute, which led to her death.
Braveboy says Kearney took off to Virginia. He called police. They told him to go back to Maryland and turn himself in.
He did come forward. He did admit to the wrongdoing.
Kearney is the head coach of the Spalding High football team. He was born and raised in Griffin. He played in preseason games as a wide receiver for the New York Jets in 04 and 05.
His actions were egregious, deadly.
Best was a nurse. Previous reports referred to her as Kearney's girlfriend. Braveboy says the two were well acquainted with each other, but the extent of the relationship is unclear. Braveboy wonders, why would anyone commit such a grisly act?
This young woman was beautiful. She was a nurse. She cared for others. And, why anyone would want to take a life that helps to preserve life is beyond me.
You know why. You know why. We all know why this happened. Now, Anton does not believe in victim shaming, nor do I believe in talking and speaking down on somebody or bigging up somebody that's done a crime. However, we know why. Domestic dispute turned violent, which it usually does, and he lost his temper and he lost his stuff. We don't necessarily know the details behind it. I don't know. Maybe she was busting it down for a real one. Maybe he got caught busting it down for a real one. Maybe he just got PTSD and he just angry. But most of the time, when these domestic disputes take place, what happens is it winds up turning into something that's deadly because people can't control their emotions. And instead of removing themselves from the situation, they decide that they just want to fly off the handle, and it's absolutely egregious that this situation happened to that young lady. So if he did do it, and obviously they're saying that he did it because he confessed to it, then he needs to be thrown under the jail. And most people are just not prepared to be in a relationship. Most people are not prepared to be in a situationship. So praying for the family, it's unfortunate. But let's go into something a little bit lighter, something a little bit more cool. At least we got us a white woman that is on probation for allegedly using Grammarly, in which they saying that she didn't use Grammarly. They saying that she using artificial intelligence in order to get her stuff done at her college campus. But check it out.
A University of North Georgia student on academic probation after she says that she used Grammarly to proofread a paper. But the university claims she used artificial intelligence to complete it.
Fox 5's Kim Luffler has the back and forth of what happened.
The UNG junior I spoke with says she's used the proofreading tool before, but a paper she turned in back in October was flagged for plagiarism.
It's just been very frustrating.
Marley Stevens says after submitting a paper for her criminal justice class in October, she was surprised to learn her professor gave her a 0 for the assignment and reported her to the Office of Student Integrity.
And he was like, you used AI on your paper, you get a 0. That was it. I had Grammarly installed in my web browser, but I've only ever had like the free version of it. So all it did was fix my punctuation and my spelling.
She submitted the paper through the program Turnitin, which flagged it for the use of AI. Earlier this month, she learned she'd been placed on academic probation. The company Grammarly says the suggestions for grammar and spelling changes aren't made through generative AI, an algorithm which can create new content on its own. They also note some third-party tools can mistake any Grammarly use as generative AI. Stevens says she's used Grammarly on other assignments before without issue.
I've written my papers the same exact way all through college. In a Google Doc with my Grammarly extension, I've never had any problems.
Regarding their AI policies, the University of North Georgia issued a statement saying, in part, our faculty members communicate specific guidelines regarding the use of AI for various classes, and those guidelines are included in the class syllabi.
If it's a college, they should have a school-wide policy for things like this instead of just leaving it up to each and every professor. Even though it wrote absolutely nothing for me, I still get a 0.
Stevens took to TikTok to share her story, which has millions of views.
I didn't think posting it on TikTok would fix it for me with the school in any way, but AI is really getting integrated into everything, and so I just wanted to warn other people and be like, hey, if you're going to do this, talk to your professors every semester, ask them specific questions.
Stevens' academic probation currently lasts until next February.
I don't believe her. Nope, I don't believe her. You know how I know when certain people are lying? When they open up their mouth. I don't believe her even a little bit. You know why? Because I've used Grammarly. Grammarly is installed on my browser. And a lot of times when I post a video or I put a title up in there or whatever, they'll correct some sentence structure or some spelling. But I don't know to what extent, what type of Grammarly they got, but the Grammarly that I got, just go through and it proofreads to make sure that you got the right punctuation. And it also goes through and make sure that you're spelling your words correctly, right? So when you send an email, you're not looking like a whole fool. Maybe you're looking like a half a fool because the email could be ignorant itself. But it does not go through and it does not generate entire papers based off of, you know what I'm saying? You can't write an entire paper with Grammarly. So if the professor flagged them, which obviously we need to know the additional context because the professor themselves didn't necessarily speak to it. But if the professor flagged it for AI generation for the entire paper, it can't, in my experience, based off of what I've seen, based off of Grammarly, right? Like I've seen entire papers be written based off of ChatGPT. I've tested the thing, right? Me and my daughter, I've absolutely advocate for my daughter to use ChatGPT. She's only really used it for her math homework, as far as I know. But I've never seen Grammarly flag a paper. So a lot of people will take to TikTok and they would just be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You're a woman and AI is installed in everything or whatever. No, I'm not going for it. It's a prop. She probably used it, then went back and used Grammarly to correct it. And now she's telling a white lie. White lie meaning that you're only telling half the truth. You probably use Grammarly, but you probably use some other tool to help you write the paper. Just because you're innocent, just because you got the soul stone around your neck don't mean that I'm going to believe you. I don't believe you at all, but I do think that artificial intelligence will be installed in everything. And I encourage my daughter to use it because instead of saying, oh man, you shouldn't use it, this is bad, we going that way. So I want you to figure out how you can use it the most effective way possible. So